Walk round compound, see some tigers. All right, let's do this. There's a cat right there. She's got a tummy and she's got stripes. And there's another cat over there. He's got hair on his head. And there's another one over there. She's got attitude. All right, that's enough for the cast. It's enough. I am a little bit under the weather today. I mean, technically speaking, I think that everyone, really, we're immersed in the weather. But I guess also it's like we're more under the weather because you think like the amount of atmosphere that's up there as opposed to like, from here down. There's more weather happening from here up than from here down. So I guess it would be accurate to say that most of us are just always under the weather. Unless you're an astronaut. Unless you're an astronaut, then you're over the weather. Unless you're over the weather. Oh boy. Actually, that's not a bad segue. It's not a bad segue for some of the stuff that I wanted to talk about. Is astronauts. They deal with the stuff that they do and the achievements that astronauts make. They attract a certain type of people, a certain type of interesting citizen who sees conspiracies. Conspiracies! No matter where they go. But that's going to be for a little bit later. Really, what I was going to do was I was going to talk about it being like, I'm feeling sick. And then I was going to say something like, it's probably all of the fluoride that the CIA puts into the water. And then segue into tinfoil hat. I was going to talk a little bit about that. Got a little bit of schmutz. Got a little bit of schmutz on the camera. I was going to talk about, some of that stuff. Oh my gosh, look at, there's a guy, he stopped. He was a motorcycle guy and he just wanted to stop and see, look at her. Oh my gosh. She's like, I'm gonna eat that motorcycle. Look at. Give me that motorcycle, I'll eat that motorcycle. Oh, that was so cute. Oh, that was Shanti. Because this one right here is Naya. Oh my gosh, look at you. Look at you. Very cute girls. Very, very cute girls. Hello, all you big cat lovers out there. It's me, Derek, again. Welcome to another super duper fantastic Walk Around the Compound webcast. Again, filming a little bit later in the day. Same day filmed webcast. So whenever I do that, a lot of times it gets uploaded a little bit later. So if you have been patiently waiting for the webcast to get loaded, I am sorry for that. But if you are on a different part of the world, in a different time zone, a lot of times that means that this one will get like uploaded and you'll be like about ready to eat breakfast. And then you'll be like, oh my goodness. Oh, look at this. Look at this, love. Derek uploaded a video. I can have me Vegemite. Watch some kitties. For all of my Aussie supporters. Nothing like a good bit of Vegemite and some tigers. In the morning. Wouldn't you agree, love? Wouldn't you agree? Look at these cute kitties. Look at these cute kitties. Look at. So I am going to try to talk a little bit about. I'm ramble. I can talk about some of that stuff. I guess some of the different things that you see, information and where you get information and how to verify. Like all the stuff that kind of circles around that. Just about a few different kind of things and maybe some different ideas. But one thing I will say is I'm sick. I think I got the the flu. And here's the thing about the flu. A lot of people, when you say the flu, like people are thinking like, no, I'm not barfing and puking and pooping and stuff like that. No, it's more like I got more like fevery kind of congestion, cough, taking medicine, and I'm just, I can get a little bit woozy doozy. But actually, I think I'm a little bit better today than I was past the couple, like yesterday and the day before. I was in some kind of a little bit more rough shape. Body, like when your body aches, don't you hate that? Oh, and then you got to take some of that acetaminophen. Don't take too much, or it's gonna hurt your liver. Don't take this stuff and drink alcohol, because that's too much stuff and your liver can't handle it. And then you're sitting there thinking like, well, it looks like I'm not taking medicine today. But, priorities. Whiskey's an antiseptic. That's fine. It'll just kill the germs. But yeah, no, everyone's over here has just been coming down with like the same kind of thing, and it's just, yeah. Then you're medicine-y, and you got a medicine head. And I think you can probably tell my voice sounds a little bit different. And I know the people be like, you should just go back inside, Derek, and just get some chicken soup and be good and be. And it's like, no, don't worry about it. Just, it's fine. It's fine. Trust me, it's good. Like I said, I think that when you're talking about the parabolic curve, when you're talking about like the thing, it's like health, oh, sick, super sick, and then I think I'm at this kind of point right here. Yeah, so as far as like the timeline is concerned. But I'm only saying that because here's the thing, I'm going to try to get into some topics. I'm going to try to talk about some stuff, and I apologize in advance if I don't have the best, the grasp of things, simply because, yeah, sick brain, medicine, not gonna work the best. I'm feeling pretty good, feeling pretty confident. So let's see how we do. But yeah, I wanted to talk a little bit about that stuff because, of course, when you're talking about, there's so many different things that happen around these days. You hear just like about information and things like fake news and all that stuff, and we're saturated in it. We're saturated in information, and it's so easy for people to change it and distort it and manipulate it. Information. And this is not even talking to like the media. This is not even talking about that. But it's so easy to like just change images. How many times do you see like something like forward dot Facebook dot this, and it's like you'll see a picture, an image, or something like that, and it doesn't necessarily, and it'll have a story that goes along with it, and I'm like, well, the context of this story, and it's so easy to adjust and alter like the timeline of like a story, and to get people really fired up, about something when it might not necessarily be the right type of thing. It's easy to propel like narratives, and this is outside. Don't try to disengage yourself from like the current like political media kind of climate. What I'm just talking about all of that. I'm talking about all of that, like everything, every avenue that you can get information from, whether it be from like your uncle's Facebook feed or all of those type of things. And I remember Lewis Black, he had a really great bit one time when he's talking about like facts. He was in his 2006 Carnegie Hall appearance, and he was just like, well, the one side's got their facts, and then the other side's got their facts, and I want to know where the facts are. Give me the facts. And it seems to be how like a lot of people, like that's the things are kind of going now. Like, where are the facts? And I think also, and I was listening to an interview with Neil deGrasse Tyson, and he was actually talking on Joe Rogan's podcast, because I like Joe Rogan's podcast, JRE, and they were talking about things like, they were talking about this type of stuff, and then they were also talking about cognitive bias, and they were talking about how human beings have, through our biology and through our psychology, we have like inherent abilities to just process information in a certain way, and what it can do is it can kind of betray us. Hi, bud. How you doing? Mr. Peasy Pants. Whoa, look at that little snuffle. There's actually some really good, I would recommend Googling. Just Google like the different types of cognitive biases. And it's basically, cognitive biases are different little tricks that your brain can pull on you to get you to agree with or believe certain things that may not be along the lines of objectivity. Like there's certain types of biases that automatically make you, I think it's something called the anchoring bias. Like what it is like sometimes you become just, you can easily become swayed by the first bit of information that hits you. And there was a video I watched on YouTube, and it was actually, they brought about like this idea that, let's say that you go to a car dealership, and then you want to get a new car, and then the car dealership says like, hey, I want to, sell you this car for $30,000. And then you're like, I don't know, let me think about it. And then you go back a couple days later and they're like, hey, you know what? We'll sell that car to you for $20,000. And then you're like, oh, that's a good deal, because you're biased into thinking that, based on that first number that you heard, that 30,000, like, oh my gosh, I can definitely buy this. But let's say that the opposite is true. Let's say that you go there and then you say like, hey, I want to buy that same car for $10,000. And that's the first number that you throw out there. And then they say like, well, we'll sell it to you for $20,000. And then you're like, well, oh. Now that's like an extreme example of something like that. But you see how like the first bits of information can have a huge, it's kind of like that first impressions kind of thing. You only got one chance to make a first impression. Well, that's one type of bias. And there's a lot of, there's dozens, or like a dozen at least. I don't know, you have to look that up, of different cognitive biases. Like confirmation bias. This is a big one, and this is a big one that, like, as far as like science is concerned, or what people will claim to be science. Hi. Confirmation bias is a big one, where basically it's like one where they kind of cherry like new bits of information, or they'll selectively pick bits of information that support or back up their preconceived notion about whatever a thing may be, maybe a scientific theory or maybe like an event happenstance or a political ideology. They'll take one or two things that support, I see you. You're basically, you have the bias that like, well, because he hasn't acknowledged me, this is what Diwali's saying. He's like, well, because there's evidence that Derek has not acknowledged me yet, therefore he does not see me. Like, that's his, that's his cognitive bias. That is his confirmation bias. I think that's how that is. But it's basically how people they'll cherry pick information to support whatever their idea is. And what they'll do in the meantime is that they will ignore possibly mountains worth of evidence. Mountains of evidence that support or lend itself to other ideas. They'll ignore just tons of it. And you see that a lot. And that's why I talked about, like, the conspiracy theories. And some of them get pretty wild. Now some, like, and don't get me, like, here's the thing about, like, I don't, there's some conspiracies, people are interesting, and there have been conspiracies in the past, conspiracies that have been kind of sort of proven through, like, a historical context, through a historical lens. But most of the ones, like, you get into, like, some real tinfoil hat areas, where it goes from like relatively mundane. Like I know that this is because this is a huge event within American history, but the assassination of JFK, what I would call that like more along like the mundane area of conspiracy theory, because to me that seems to be maybe like I go back and forth. Like there's interesting evidence like on both sides of it that it's just like I don't know, and then you hear one thing and be like, okay, well I'm a little bit more apt to think about this, and then you hear evidence on the other side. I'm like, I don't know, I'm a little bit more apt to hear this, and then it gets really, really crazy. Sometimes conspiracy, like there's the Earth is flat, and we are ruled by a new world order government of reptilian lizard people. And when I say that, there's people who think that they think it's true. They think that it's true. Like we're seeing a lot of that. We're seeing a lot more of that type of stuff. Like a willful rejection of objective, peer-reviewed based research and science for some of this stuff that's really just just definitely out there, and it's very nutty and it's very pseudoscience-y, in my opinion. A lot of the stuff as far as oh gosh, I mean, like you think about the link between vaccines and autism. That's a big one, which has been disproven time and time again. That one of the biggest reasons why we have more cases of autism now than we did back in the day is because we realize that it's a lot more subtle and nuanced of an affliction than what we had ever thought previously. And our methods for diagnosing autism are a lot more specific. We have more cases of it because we're better at recognizing it. And then when they sit there and because they'll sit there and say like, well, what about this? And there's formaldehyde in vaccines. It's like there's a lot of different chemicals and a lot of different things. But when you're talking about stuff that is in like tiny little minute amounts, yeah, you can actually have like actual, like what in large doses is poison, in tiny little scientifically researched amounts can actually become therapeutic. It can be medicinal. And some of the initial like vaccines, autism's link stuff, it was it goes back to the guy he had his medical license revoked. I can't remember what the guy's name was. Someone in the comment section, please help me out. I'm sick. I can't think right now. But there was a guy. He was the one that said it. And like, he was completely, absolutely like just smashed by the medical community, proven wrong time and time and time again. But there are people now who refuse to vaccinate their children. And you're seeing different afflictions, like measles and polio and stuff like that. I think, at least polio, like coming back. You're talking about like old world diseases that should have been just completely eradicated and could easily be kept at bay through the vaccinations, and they're coming back. And it's based off of like faulty medicine. It's faulty knowledge. And then what about the people like, well, it's my body, my choice, my kid. It's like when you're talking about vaccinating your kids, there are some people and children who they are honestly legitimately allergic to certain types of vaccinations. They cannot take those types of vaccinations. What they rely on is herd immunity. That means that they rely on a vaccinated population of healthy people surrounding them to ensure that they themselves don't get sick. And when you start introducing sick people into the herd, then those people who cannot be vaccinated are then put at risk. Yeah. Then you got the flat earthers. There's another group. There's a bunch of people who they legitimately think that the earth is flat. Because they look on the horizon and then they see that it's flat, or they get up into an airplane and then it's not high enough to see the curvature of the earth. Therefore, based on their scientific observations, they have deduced that as far as I can tell, the earth is flat. And I understand the sentiment, the idea, and for that pure fact alone, like they're taking what they can see, and then they're basing at least they're doing that, I guess. They're basing their opinions on things that they can see. Okay. But I think that there's a lot of things that we believe in that we can't, like, a lot of people you're able to see this video via wireless or Wi-Fi signals. And you can't see that stuff, but I mean, I put trust in the fact that those things exist, because it allows for some of these really amazing kind of things. So, I mean, when you really try to break some of this stuff down and some of the logic that is employed by some of these people, it kind of falls apart. But then again, it's like it's hard to confront people on these types of things, again, because you're talking about cognitive biases at play. You're talking about people's preconceived notions really coming into how they approach life just in general. And when you question one of the things as far as their reality is concerned, you're rejecting their entire reality. And it's hard. It's hard to say, like, oh yeah, no, my reality is actually not as how I thought it to be. We want to be anchored. We want to feel safe and secure. So yeah, no, I get it. But there are too many different things. And here's the other thing. It's like, people want to have a rejection of science, and they want to have a rejection of scientific thought. Or they will confuse. They confuse, like, pseudoscience with actual science. Peer-reviewed scientific methodology. And that's a problem. And that one of the things, though, is that a lot of people, they're just average folks. It's difficult. Like, well, what's the difference between pseudoscience and an actual science? And it's like sometimes the differences are very large and very clear, and sometimes they're a little bit more nuanced, a little bit more subtle. But then the way that I kind of think about it, especially with like the flat Earth type stuff. I mean, we have so many different things that we utilize today. We, like, our satellite technology, our GPS technology. I mean, like the thousands upon thousands of airplane flights that take place every day that actually have to go in a parabolic arc over the landscape. They don't go like in a straight line. They actually do this kind of thing oftentimes, and that's to help with the curvature of the Earth and the spin of the Earth and like the fuel consumption rates and stuff like that. Yeah. And then of course it's faked. It's all fake. Prove it. And it's like, oh, you try to show them, like, yeah, it's like you show them globes or pictures of planets, or you try to show them like astronomical, like, telescope photos or anything like that, like, don't prove anything, it could be faked. I'm like, okay, well, it looks like anything that I show you, it's like, it seems like you've already made up your mind. And that's the problem, is that people, because then you try to sit there and say, like, no, because me, and I guess it's a problem too, because I'm sitting like saying, like, no, I'm right, you're wrong. I mean, that's what they see. But I mean, when you're talking about stuff that goes and flies in the face of tried and true, like, accepted within like the scientific community, yeah, that's where I have issues. And here's the other thing, like, as far as science is concerned, as far as the scientific community is concerned, when new data presents itself and new hypotheses present themselves regarding problems, and they're testable, they're measurable, and they can be reproduced by multiple different labs and multiple different organizations, then the scientific consensus changes. It changes. They don't strongly adhere to things. When new data presents itself, they will say, well, this is the new way of thinking now. Sometimes people, they confuse like science to be like, they think of it, it's like, well, it's a system of beliefs. No, it's a way of thinking. The scientific method. It's a way, it's the best way that we've devised so far of just learning about our natural surroundings. Learning about what we can see and touch and smell and measure. All that stuff. But yeah, You see, and maybe it's not. Maybe the number of people who think this way and say this stuff about like vaccines or like the Earth is flat or the dinosaurs aren't real. Oh my gosh, yeah. People say the dinosaurs aren't real, or they'll say that evolution is just a theory. I mean, it's just like there's so much evidence. There's a tremendous amount of evidence, both geologic, astronomic, and it all points towards this idea that like the universe is billions of years old, and that there's these strong and slow processes that have dictated, how these particles have kind of come to. And here's the thing: we're still learning, and that's the thing. Like sometimes people say, like, "Oh, well, then there's no magic," and there is magic, though. That's the thing. We're still learning. We're still figuring all this stuff out. I mean, maybe you don't think so, but Carl Sagan had a really great quote. Because I used to look at the Cosmos series a lot, and I love the Cosmos series. And he said that humans are like butterflies who flutter for a day and think it to be forever. And I love that quote. I think it's a great quote, because when you're talking about someone whose lifespan may be only like 70 or 75 years, and then compare that potentially to billions of years, makes you seem kind of small. Makes you seem insignificant. When you say things, like the world is flat, or like the Illuminati, or 9/11 was an inside job. When you say stuff like that, in a weird way, a lot of times those people, it creates a sense of order for them. And it compresses the world into a size that they can understand. And then it also, especially with like some of the conspiracy stuff, like the governmental conspiracy type stuff, a lot of that stuff actually has to do with, because it allows people to think at least there's someone, maybe there's a shadow crazy government in charge full of lizard people, but at least someone's in charge. That's what a lot of that kind of, I think, boils down to. I'm sure that I'm sure that there's some people who watch this stuff they're probably going to be kind of pissed off about it. And then they're going to go and they're going to comment like, well, what about this? And what about this false flag operation? And this piece of evidence? And like, that's fine. Look, you can show all this stuff, and it's probably, hopefully it doesn't get too crazy and ugly in the comment section. But I definitely, I absolutely don't claim to know pretty much anything. I don't. But that's the beauty of it, is I want to keep on trying to find things out. And that's one of the reasons I love science, and I love scientists, and I love to talk to them, and to hear about what they have to say, and to hear about the discoveries. Because it's like all of these things, like the greatest technological innovations of the past 150, 200 years, yeah, it's been brought about by that method. So I choose to kind of think that there's something to it. I mean, we go from being, relatively arcane civilization for thousands of years to, having jet planes and microprocessors, like literally within 150. It's amazing. And we keep on accelerating our development and our understanding of the world around us. But a big part of that is making sure that you're looking at things objectively, that you do understand how information can be distorted, that you do understand that you don't know everything that you think that you know. And to question everything, even yourself. And even those tightly held notions that you may have held for many years. It's important to understand the nature of cognitive biases and how your brain can inherently trick you. Because going forward, that type of information is going to be, it's going to be so critically important. We get information that comes from all sides. That's why they have that giant debate about what's news and what's fake news. Because it's so easy to manipulate. It's so easy to manipulate information. You know? It really is. I guess you think about it. Like, if I were to take some of the tools that I have, and if I, like, there was a claymation video that was made in the 1920s, and it was, I don't know if it was, I don't know, it might have been, actually, it could have been King Kong, which was in the 1930s. But some of the claymation stuff with, like, the dinosaur fights in the beginning, like, people legitimately thought, they asked, like, did you go to I'm not even making this up, but people actually asked the movie makers, did you find an island with dinosaurs on it and film there? Like, my goodness, like, they thought, and that was using, like, 1930s, like, clay and camera techniques. And they were able to bamboozle people. If I were to take, like, photoshopped images, you know, and I were to go back in time when people didn't understand that, or how to, I could make people think all sorts of things. But it happens now. It happens today. So, yeah. And this is an ongoing conversation. There's no way that I can, there's no way that you can. Well, I think we all wrapped it up. I think we all figured it out, and there we go. Like, look, I learn new things all the time. Excuse me. Oh, so sorry. I learn new things all the time, and I've had to change my outlook and my viewpoint on things. A number of times. The stuff that I used to think maybe like 5 years ago is there's some things that I think differently now. Stuff that I thought 10 years ago. There's a ton of things I thought like 10 years ago that I certainly don't think now. So it's like we're always going, we're always amending. I don't know. I'm starting to kind of ramble a little bit, but yeah, I wanted to talk a little bit about that. Let's see, I have notes. Let's see, people are persuadable. I know it's, oh yeah, that's the other thing too. There's like some people, there's a scary trend where it's like sometimes there's people even, they might even really kind of know, like, I think that this bit of information might not be exactly true, but it fits my narrative. It fits like what I want to believe. So I'm just going to go with it. I'm going to propagate it and I'm going to share it. That's scary. Come on. What are you doing? And that's okay, and that's also like it's on both sides. And when I talk about this stuff, because that's the other thing, I don't want my comment section to descend into partisanship or what's on this side or what's on that side, because I don't want it to be just snowflake or you got just like, oh, you got like the Nazi conservative cook and whatever. I don't like that stuff. And look, yeah, there's extremes on both sides. Douchebags. I try to stay middle of the road, There's some, and and I don't want to get terribly too, specific about like what my personal politics are. But there's some things that I think a little bit conservatively on, and there's some things I think liberally on, and I pick and choose and I go forth. I think that. For example, I think that guns and weed should be legal. Chill people out. Less shooting. Less shootings. But, or, like something else, like I believe in a strong military, but I think that also people in the LGBT community should be able to marry within that military. That's not to get too deep into, like, what it is, but that kind of gives you an idea. Like, I take things that I like, from the political buffet, like, I like that. Okay, I take things from both sides. Some people, they get tribal. They get tribal, and they just want to like, okay, I like most of the stuff over here, and even though I don't quite agree with like some of the things, I'm still going to be on this side because there's strength in numbers, and we got to be strong. We got to be together, and it's like, Nah, just say what you think and say what you believe. I don't know. It's kind of crazy. I know that I'm probably there's probably gonna be a couple downvotes based on a couple of the things that I've said, whether it be autism, vaccines, whether it be guns, or whether it be, you know, the Earth is flat, Derek, and I've met the lizard people before, and it's like, okay, I'm gonna back away slowly. I'm gonna nod politely and back away slowly. Oh boy. You know, there was an interesting, and I'm going to keep on jumping onto different topics, but as I think about them, you got to sit there and think also. I listened to this history podcast, Hardcore History, Dan Carlin. Some people have heard of it. Some people listen to it. I've talked about it before. And he talked, there was one called Prophets of Doom, and he did talk about, like, what was happening in, like, 14th century Germany with, like, some of the folks that propped up right after the Protestant Reformation. And how there were offshoots of mainstream Christianity that took place, that never took place before. But man, there were some people, and they were led astray by people who had they claimed to like hear the voice of God. They claimed to hear like these voices, and it was just like people. They were like, some of them were manipulated to, and again, Prophets of Doom, you gotta hear about it because it was basically like a siege was it not Munich? Was it Munich or Münster? Something like that. Either way, like there were some people who they had like legitimate like schizophrenic tendencies. They took control. They claimed to be prophets. They took control of like a city, and then that they ended up getting a whole bunch of people killed. And it was just like, oh my gosh. And like, but people didn't know about mental illness. They didn't know. They didn't have that objective reasoning. They just like, oh my gosh, this person's like having visions and they're saying these things, so it has to be true. So, I don't know. That's where it's like, you got to be careful. It's like, what is true? What is not? What is real? And people have been getting confused about these things for a long time. Long time. It's just interesting. It's an interesting world that we find ourselves in. It's an interesting time that we find ourselves in, I think. One of the most exciting times, I think, in human history, ever. But, you know, going forward, just, yeah, got to try to sift through the junk as much as possible. Try to find, like, what is the universal truth? Not necessarily what the opinion is, but what is the objective? What is that? Anyway, oh my gosh. I'm sorry. I'm sick. And I'm starting to ramble. I'm starting to babble. But, you know, hopefully you enjoy this. I know I did. And I'll talk at you folks later, okay? All right. Oh, sorry. Travis wanted me to ask you folks to come up with some questions for him, because yeah, like just like get to know you type questions, stuff like that, like hey, different things like that, maybe opinion based kind of things. So if you want to ask Travis some questions, go ahead and put them in the comment section below, and yeah, we'll talk to you later. All right, bye bye.